In less than a month, we have Everfree Northwest to go to. But until then, we have this to do. The MLP Review / Vlogs. Well, mainly they're the initial opinions, but still, these are what I consider to be, the early reviews and whatnot. But let's get on with this week's episode. This is Gauntlet of Fire, and here's what I could tell off the title. This is essentially what I think is a bona fide version of, well, at least a more tamer version of Game of Thrones. And for those who don't know what Game of Thrones is, it's essentially, George R.R. Martin's novel and the HBO original series. And if you have not either read the books or seen the HBO original series, basically I highly recommend actually seeing the HBO original series, because I haven't read the original books, because they're about as long as the frickin' Bible. But let me talk about the episode in particular. So the episode starts off with Spike and Rarity going off to find some gems in a bat cave. But Spike winds up glowing as brightly as, the heavens. But what does this mean? It turns out that there's a huge event going on called the Gauntlet of Fire, where all the dragons gather to go after this huge as ever staff, who would be named the next Dragon Lord. And all the dragons go to return, including the dragons from Dragon Quest. Yep, that's right. That means that Garble and the teenage dragons, including the purple teenage one, which I'm sad to say doesn't even have a voice in this, they go to this mountainside as they obviously compete for this little, tournament. But it's not as bloody or as gory as, Game of Thrones per se. It's a little bit more tamer. It's just get this staff that's way into this fiery pit, and you'll be crowned the next Dragon Lord. But of course, the old king essentially has a princess who wants to compete, but the king feels as if he won't be crowned, the dragon won't be crowned the Dragon Lord. However, when the game starts, Spike tries to, ultimately not try to compete. However, he ultimately decides to compete, and as, a mysterious player goes down, and Spike winds up recovering that mysterious player, it turns out it's the mysterious player that is Ember. Yes, Ember, the princess. Well, technically I wouldn't say princess, because it isn't an alicorn or any of those. So, what happens during this episode? Both Spike and Ember, I'm gonna have to get used to saying that name, compete, well, not compete, because they don't fight against each other. They put aside their differences, and they help each other out during the competition, and as soon as they get near the gauntlet, that's when Garble tries to step in and try to push Spike to the side. That's when Ember steps in, gets Garble out of the way, and Spike winds up retrieving the staff, and winds up becoming the Dragon Lord. However, he winds up giving Garbo one title, and that's it. He winds up giving the staff to Ember so that he can prove to her father, that she can actually compete and become the prince of that said title, as they, as Twilight and Rarity gain, obviously, a new a new person to talk to, new disguises and such, and everything goes well and ends well. I must say, I really did like the nod in this episode, for a fact. I didn't know if they were mistakenly trying to nod to Game of Thrones or whatever, but I love the fact that they tried to step in and compete for everything that they did in this episode. And that's one thing that I really liked about this. But I also loved that, like Ember's, like, design is really cool. I love her, like, design. I loved her armor. Her armor is really, really impressive. And something I could see a cosplay of. If I see this at Everfree or BronyCon, I won't be going to BronyCon this year. Maybe I could try to see about doing that next year. Who knows? I could try to see if I could snap a photo of it for this year's Everfree Northwest. And from that point on, I can add that to this year's con vlogs. Who knows? But for all I know, that could be next year's cosplay. But no guarantees on that. But I can't wait to see what they do for next week's episode. But overall, Gauntlet of Fire, great Game of Thrones reference, good character reference of Ember. Yeah, I really love the design. Good. Love how she actually turns into a good friend of Spike and the ponies, and think she would make a great princess of the dragons. So I don't know what next week's title is, so I'll go blindly into next week's episode. But for whatever happens in next week's episode, I'll see you guys for the next one. Later.